Good morning and welcome to our live edition of The Audible, presented by Trader Joe's. I'm Bruce Feldman, joined as always by my colleagues from The Athletic, Stuart Mandel, Ralph Russo. Great show we got today. Lots to get into on a wild Saturday. A lot of stuff happened, a lot of surprising stuff. Don't forget, every episode of the show is now on YouTube. Find us at youtube.com/@Audible Show. You can join us every Sunday morning at this time, obviously at 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Let's get into the biggest wow moment to me, and let's go to Ralph. Ralph, you were at the game last night. You're still in Happy Valley. What is your biggest takeaway of what you saw there in that scene?
Yeah, in some ways it's a challenging thing to write the same story over and over, right? And that's where we are with Penn State. So I don't know, I posted a story this morning talking about Penn State getting booed going on and off the field, especially on offense, and then having that moment about 12 minutes of football clock time. Maybe it was a half an hour of real time where you just thought, oh, this is it. They're going to do it. Like, this comeback came out of nowhere. Like, this is the culmination of all that they have been building for. And then again, like Lucy with Linus pulling the ball away, right? Trying to kick the field goal. My major takeaway is I have two. One is, and they're both kind of related to Drew Allar. And I don't like to be the guy who comes on and analyzes football about nothing but the quarterback. But you get a 5-star. A couple of years ago, when he became the starter at Penn State, I wrote when I was with the AP that this is the most important player in the country. Because if Penn State is ever going to make that step forward that we've been talking about, what they need is the star quarterback. Because the star quarterback will narrow the gap between Penn State's number of blue chips and Ohio State's and Alabama's and Georgia. Because when you have a great quarterback, that makes up for some of your other deficiencies, quote unquote deficiencies. And that just has not happened. Like, I don't want to put it all on Allar. It is definitely, the loss was not all on Allar. But at this point, like, you got to get more than 140 yards out of passing out of your former 5-star quarterback. It's just, it can't. We got the new OC that cost $2 million, Andy Kotelnicki. We brought in new receivers. Like, we're doing all these things that are supposed to make him better and support him better. And you can nitpick and say, well, maybe the OC didn't failed him, or maybe the receivers are still not good enough. At some point, Dante Moore, in his like 10th college start, 5th this year, played great. The former 5-star played like a 5-star. Allar is still a guy that, like, well, he made some flashes and he had some plays, but like, it's got to be better than that. The other thing I'll say, just to wrap up the long-winded rant here, is I do wonder if we assumed Penn State is bringing all these guys back, including Allar, and all the good players would then get a little better. And what I sense is what we have is Penn State brought back last year's team, took out the two best players from last year's team, Abdul Carter and Ty Warren. They're still very good, but they're mostly just last year's team without their two best players.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you brought up Dante Moore there in passing, Ralph, because to me, he's the story of that game. And we really see, I mean, he was amazing, right? Especially, they look like they were done. I mean, in overtime, he gets, actually it was his, botched handoff that gets them in 2nd and 13. Like, this is going to be the end, right? It's the Penn State defense. And he gets them in the end zone, and then he comes back and throws the 25-yard touchdown. So you see the contrast there, right? Like, you have these two different 5-star quarterbacks, and we saw Dante Moore as a true freshman at UCLA really struggle, right? Which is not unusual for a true freshman. And now from that to what you saw in State College, wow, like, that is progress. Drew Allar, I would suggest, is going in the opposite direction, because as much flack as he took last season, especially the way it ended, he was still a top number 14 pass rate, 14th rated passer in the country. Do you know what he is so far this year? 80th, and that was with 3 cupcakes to pad the stats, if you will. So I don't know if it's there's no way to know for sure, right? Whether it's the players themselves or coaching, because we are now seeing Dan Lanning has been at Oregon for 4 years. Bo Nix, Dylan Gabriel, and it looks like Dante Moore is going to get to that level as well. So yeah, I know everybody naturally gravitates to, James Franklin loses again, 4-21, but I was so impressed with the way Oregon handled that atmosphere, blew a 2-touchdown lead, and still came back and won. What do you
Yeah,
think, Bruce?
I would say that I agree with everything Stu just said, but I would add it to me the biggest star of the night is Dan Lanning, because a lot of the stuff I look at here, it is Dante Moore. It is Bo Nix, by the way. Guys get better when they get in that program. Bo Nix was a 5-star guy, by the way, too, and had some good moments at Auburn, but he blossomed there. You saw it, Kenny, it went from Kenny Dillingham, who was the offense coordinator he brought in. Then Kenny Dillingham gets the ASU job, and then he goes out and grabs Will Stein. Tosh Lupoy has been a very good defensive coordinator. Credit to him. That is a really good run game and a really good offensive line, and Oregon got after them. Marshall Malto is a guy who most people have never heard of. He's the personnel guy behind the scenes. They have done a masterful job getting guys in the portal. The guy who made the biggest play of the game on defense, Dylan Thieneman, was a good player at Purdue, and they got him there. They didn't go out and try to bring another quarterback in the portal this offseason because they saw enough from what they saw at practice to say, hey, Dante Moore is that guy, not just because he's got a terrific arm and he's really accurate, but also because his temperament seems to be almost perfect for this position. Not too high, not too low. You can tell he was emotional, but you can tell he controlled his emotions. That was awesome. By the way, Mekhi Hughes was a big running back portal addition. They got a bunch of other dudes in there. Like every week you watch them, there's somebody else that flashes. And I think the biggest, wow thing for me is how they respond to moments. And I think that is because Dan Lanning, Kirby Smart, Saban, whoever you want to give him credit, for, he's probably taken bits and pieces of all of them, but he just is in his sweet spot there of having them primed for it. And the flip side of this, I can get why NFL scouts or draft guys are enamored with Drew Allar, because you see stuff in there. You're like, ooh, that was an amazing throw he made. It's not like he's Josh Allen athletically. He's a big guy who can move, he can pick up some yards. I mean, he's not a dynamic runner, but you see some things in there. But the thing I come back to with Penn State, and I think this is the hard part if you're a Penn State fan, is they look like they're playing tight. And, Ralph, when you were talking about Drew Allar, and it's funny because Trace McSorley was the guy who had very little. I mean, he could really run, but very little like prototype stuff for a NFL quarterback prospect. But Trace McSorley, in those days, Penn State seemed like they were throwing haymakers. You had Trace McSorley, Joe Moorhead was calling the offense. They obviously had Saquon, and you had a bunch of really good receivers. Those guys ended up shining in the NFL too. But I felt like that Penn State team was not as tight as this one seems to be. It almost seems like when they take the field, there's a cloud over them that says 4-20 against ranked teams. It's just like, or whatever pick your stat. They're all
4-21 now. Yep.
Yeah. And it just feels like it's hanging over them, and for 3 quarters, they look like they were stuck in the mud, and looked like they were playing an NFL team. And I don't know what it takes for them to get out of that vibe or out of that mode. I mean, look, we learned the lesson last year that you can't write off a team. Everybody wrote off Ohio State. Penn State is very talented. Will at some point they get it right? I don't know. I mean, it is the Charlie Brown. I think you botched the Charlie Brown this kicking the
Oh, Charlie
football
Brown.
analogy.
Yeah,
You
Charlie
put
Brown.
Linus
I
in
think
there.
Linus in there. Yeah,
Yeah, I
Linus
think
is.
Linus was a slot receiver in the on the
Yeah.
offense. It's Charlie Brown who was missing the field goals. So I don't know. Hats off to Oregon. I'll say this just for here. Like, I was wrong. I did not think they would be a playoff team this year. I thought they had too many guys to replace. And they were so impressive. I think they should be the number one team in the country because to me, that is a much more impressive win. I know we'll get into Ohio State in a bit. Ohio State had a really good win against Texas. That was in Columbus. They had a nice win yesterday up in Seattle, but nothing was as impressive as what we've seen. You know, they've blown out the teams they should blow out, and then they went to Happy Valley in the toughest environment, and they aced the test.
Ralph, can I ask you a quick question about the toughest environment?
Mm-hmm.
You were there, and I think this is not your first whiteout, I believe, right? You've experienced
Yeah, I've been through a
that.
few.
Everybody says this is the most hostile atmosphere in college football, right? But it's not like Penn State is dominant in these whiteout games. Oregon did not seem fazed by the whiteout, right? It wasn't like they were committing a bunch of false starts or turning the ball over or anything like that. What is it truly like?
I mean, it's a great, amazing atmosphere, but I think it speaks to something that, I saw a little bit of Saban on game day yesterday. And to a certain degree, he's atmosphere is atmosphere. These places are tough to play. It does make it more difficult, but ultimately it's just noise, right? Literally noise, not like it's just literally noise. And if you can do your job, don't get overwhelmed by it. Like, you can win in these tough environments. There's a reason why home field advantage is worth 3 points. And it's a great spectacle. It is an amazing spectacle to be in that building. But, ultimately it was an amazing spectacle that I saw on TV at Georgia, and Bama went in there and beat Georgia. And I'm going to let you guys sort of take the lead on this one, starting with you, Stu, because I was following along on a TV to what was going on with Bama Georgia, but at a certain point I had to lock in on Penn State. Yeah. So obviously Bama played really good offense. It looked like Georgia, Stockton wasn't quite as good as he was against Tennessee. But what did you think? Because that's the other big storyline in sort of like a Bama's back. Like, I don't know if they were really gone, but considering what happened with Florida State at the beginning of the year, we were very quick to sort of like throw dirt on Kalen DeBoer, and that's not the case.
Well, sometimes you get these early impressions of teams and you just assume that's how they're going to be all season. I think this weekend was a perfect example of, right? And we will definitely get to Virginia later, but okay, Florida State went on the road and lost to Virginia. Alabama wins at Georgia. These are both probably different teams, or at least Alabama looks like a different team. I mean, they look like they've got it going on offense. Now, Georgia figured it out in the second half. I mean, they as good as Ty Simpson looked in the first half, they did not score in the second half. And I think what you have to give a lot of credit, Bruce, to Alabama's defense. Georgia started to run on them, started to gash them a little bit. But we saw them make several huge stops in the second half. I thought the play of the game was 4th and 1 inside the 10. Instead of kicking what would have been a game-tying field goal, this is early in the fourth quarter, Kirby goes for it, and they try to catch Alabama off guard by running to the line and running a quick play, a handoff to Cash Jones to the outside, and Georgia didn't execute it well, and Alabama snuffed it out. Overton just stuffed him for a 4-yard loss. And then Georgia never scored again. So it wasn't like you'd look at the stats and say, oh, Alabama had a dominant defense. But, man, did they make plays when it mattered.
They did. And I also thought Ty Simpson continues to be really impressive. I mean, he is firing the ball downfield into sometimes tight windows. There was a touchdown probably that should have happened in the beginning of the game where he hits Ryan Williams in stride, and Ryan Williams drops the ball. No worries. We're just going to keep executing. And Ty Simpson is playing at September Heismans don't mean anything, but Ty Simpson should definitely be high in the running. We've seen a lot of quarterbacks underwhelm who had big expectations coming into the year. He's been the opposite. Is that
because the Florida State game was in August? So therefore,
no,
he's eligible for the September.
It wasn't hit. Look, Stu, the
He played
fault was
okay
on.
against
Yeah, he
Florida
did
State
play
too.
okay. It was not him.
That wasn't their big
It
problem.
was everything around him. And I do think, look, credit to Kalen DeBoer. By the way, I think you want to throw stats out. I mean, he's nearly flawless after a bye week. I think he's now in the last few years, he's 6-0, and I think 5 of them are against ranked opponents.
He's 7-1 against the AP top 10. Do you realize how hard that is? 7-1 against top 10 teams. So it's crazy that this is the same guy who they're ready to fire after week 1.
Well, now
And
he's got to play Vanderbilt.
Had a bad start, right? But his problem hasn't been winning the big games at Alabama. It's been the Vanderbilts and the 6-6 Oklahomas.
I think the other key things were they had a couple of leaders come back. Jam Miller, who had been out since camp, came back. I mean, it wasn't like he was Mark Ingram last night, but I think that gives them a little more backbone. They do have credit also to Ryan Grubb, who's now back with DeBoer, the offense coordinator. They do some funky stuff. Jeremy Bernard, they get him the ball in different ways. Obviously, they got Caden Proctor the ball in a unique way where you have the 6'7", 360-pound left tackle getting the ball. It was, it's a running play, even though it's really a pass play. And because they lined them up, near the left sideline. And I feel like those kinds of moments, they show, I think when they're aggressive, they show that you believe in your team. And I think the team loves that kind of stuff. On the flip side, when it comes to Georgia, I was texting with a friend of mine who's really close at Georgia, and I said, what do you think has happened to these guys? Because I think the number is they're like 8-4 over their last 12, and it just doesn't look like Georgia again. And this person made the point, well, you lose 8 guys to the NFL, you lose 6 in the portal. Georgia, by the way, they played 3 FBS opponents. They have 3 sacks combined in that. That's less than Damon Wilson, who used to be at Georgia, is now a really coveted edge rusher for Missouri has. You got A.J. Harris, who's starting at cornerback for Penn State. He used to play at Georgia. So I think some of that has kind of come back to bite Georgia. They just don't look like the same anymore as they used to on defense. And that's because I think they've lost a lot of talent. And in this day and age of the portal, it comes back to bite you. I know you didn't see the game a lot. I see hardly any of the game route, but I wanted to kind of go forward on this. Because we had this conversation last night, Coach Pete and I did. Who's the best team in the SEC right now? Mm-hmm. And almost by default, I said Texas A&M because their offense is very good. Mike Elko's done a terrific job. And I feel like you have, Georgia beat Tennessee at Tennessee's place. Alabama beat Georgia at Georgia's place. We'll get to Ole Miss and maybe into this discussion. LSU has been a big disappointment. Their offense is really, really inept right now. They don't throw it great. They can't run the football. And you feel like Brian Kelly may be ready to pull the plug on his offense coordinator, Joe Sloan, before too long because the pressure is on there. Now, maybe it's Ole Miss. I don't know. Is it Texas A&M? Like, Ralph, what do you think? Who do you think is the best team right now in the conference?
Here's what I would say. And let's go back to the team that started the season as the favorite, and it's easy to forget them, right? And I don't know if I'm necessarily making a case for Texas as much as I'm saying that the more I watch everybody else, the more I realize, Texas, I think should be fine. Like, I think Texas is okay. Now, A&M, they haven't played well defensively until Auburn rolled into town with its dysfunctional offense and a quarterback who just refuses to throw the ball. Like, Jackson Arnold's got to get rid of the ball. I know their offensive line has been great, but God, that guy's got to get rid of the ball. Maybe you make a case for A&M, but I think the case could be made for Alabama, frankly, as the best team in the SEC. But again, my big picture takeaway with the SEC is the team that didn't play this weekend, the team that hasn't really won a big game in Texas, that team should be fine against these teams. None of these teams look like they're substantially better than Texas.
You're right. I think, it's still a little early to say that one team is standing out above the others. I will say this. I don't think you're going to see Georgia in the SEC championship game this year, which, in the past has been almost a given, right? I think they've been there. I'm going to screw this up off the top of my head, but it's like 7 of the last 8 years, something like that.
Sounds about right.
I don't think you're going to, I mean, they can make the playoff, but I don't think you're going to see them there because there are teams that look more complete. A&M is certainly one of them. I don't think people are, I'm very impressed with what Ole Miss is doing. Trinidad Chambliss should be like, you talk about September Heisman winners. Can you be a September Heisman winner if you weren't the starter for the first 2 weeks? I think we all agree LSU, very talented defense. Chambliss throws for 314. He runs for 71. Converts that huge fourth down to seal the game at the end. Am I ready to say they're the best team in the SEC? Not necessarily. I mean, it wasn't like they've been that great on defense up until the last week. And A&M, that was just such a big road win at Notre Dame. I mean, I give them a lot of credit for that. I think the only thing, I guess, now that I'm thinking about it, guys, that's making me hesitate to say A&M could be the best team in the SEC is just because of A&M's history. You just think like at some point they're going to lose the game they shouldn't and whatnot. But, Mike Elko is a different coach, and he's got them playing very well.
And that was yesterday, right? That was the game that they normally would have gacked away, where they outgained, Auburn almost 3-1. Somehow that game was still a one-score game, but they managed to pull away yesterday. Can I ask you one thing when we mentioned, because the Ole Miss, again, the only reason why I'm a little hesitant with Ole Miss is the one thing they don't do well, they don't do defense quite as well, but LSU's offense is so dysfunctional that I kind of wonder if that's more about LSU than Ole Miss. But as I said last week, I'm turning around on Ole Miss. I'm kind of getting on the Lane train, which brings me to this: the fourth down call was amazing, and just a great call. If you had a fourth down call, fourth and short for your life, if they do not convert it, you die. Who is the coach you want calling that? Because I think Lane might be mine. I think Lane might be the guy I want calling that play. Ryan Grubb, too, by the way. He's on that list, and DeBoer. But boy, I was thinking short list of coaches I want calling a play for my life on fourth and short. Lane is definitely on that list.
Can I say it would be somebody who goes under center? It just kind of drives, as somebody who loves the air raid probably more than anybody on the planet, it just kind of I wince whenever it's okay, we're in the shotgun, we're going to do this. The easy answer would be Nick Sirianni, because we know what his go-to is on fourth and, whatever.
Wait, we get that counts? We can do that.
No, but it's not fourth. But if it's 4th and 3, you can't push your way, which I think is short-ish. I'm not saying 4th and 1, because I think it was 4th and 3 about that one, that Lane. You need a play. You need something that's not just a get me a foot here. Like I said, I know I'm putting you guys on the spot, so you don't necessarily have to have a better answer than that. But I'm saying Lane is on that list, man.
Yeah, I'd go with Lane as well.
List, yeah.
Bruce, who actually does go under center at this point?
Not a lot of teams, man. You just don't see it every Saturday night. I do want to circle back, because I don't think I'm in the minority here when it comes to the panic at LSU over the offense. Ralph, if I gave you % chance, do you think Joe Sloan is the offensive coordinator by the end of the season?
Oh, listen, I think I was a little surprised. That they ran it back with him after last year, though, Nussmeier played well, so they had some running game limitations. I don't know. I feel like there's been less than results now for more than a year. I think the fact that they haven't been able to figure out a way to run the ball last year with 2 NFL tackles, and we're still talking about this, it doesn't look great. It does not look great again. And he replaced Denbrock, right? So that's a big fall off, because talking to another guy I wouldn't mind calling a play for my life. That's a guy who's probably on the extended version of that list too. And there doesn't seem to be production to match the sum of the parts with LSU now going on almost, a season and a half.
It seems much like Drew Allar we talked about. I think Nussmeier seems like he's gone backward a step. And, when I look back now at the kind of preseason mock drafts, right, and who the QBs were, it's kind of it's not been a great start to the season for some of these guys that you had that the draft guys all had, right? Who were the first round quarterbacks? Arch, obviously, Cade Klubnik, Nussmeier, Allar.
And I think we looked all at them a little skeptically, right? Like, I think we looked at all of them and thought, is that guy really a dude? But people seem to like this class, but you're right. Like less than halfway into the season, I think there's a lot of reassessment going on. I know there's a whole bunch of scouts there yesterday. And can I throw one guy at you though? Dante Moore is draft eligible.
He is.
We forget that.
He is. I mean, look, not to play Dan Lanning's agent here, but I think it probably would bode well for him to have more than, I think you said it is like has 10 starts. I think he had 5 at UCLA, he has 5 here. Mm-hmm. I think, be careful if and I'm not saying he's thinking this, but even if they go win a national title, he'd still probably only have about 20 starts. That's not a huge sample size. Physically, I think it would help his development to be a little longer. One guy who NFL draft people were intrigued by, who has played extremely well, Fernando Mendoza. Yesterday wasn't his best game, but Iowa's a tough place to play. We know Phil Parker's as good a defense coordinator as there is. He still found a way to make plays when they need it, and I think he's been really, really good. So
one of our commenters reminds us that Lenore Sellers was on a lot of those lists.
Lenore is a one-man team.
Off the radar.
He's taken a pounding. I'm gonna go to bat for Lenore's here a little bit. He is a one-man team, it feels like, and he takes more punishment than anybody, it seems like.
Oh, I don't put him in the. I'm not saying I'm putting him in with the disappointing category by any means. He's doing what he can.
I'm gonna pat myself on the back for that one, because South Carolina has looked like, hey, Lenore's like, just do something great. That was their offense last year, and it's even more their offense this year. And he's a pretty interesting talent, but I don't know if they're supporting him very well over in Columbia. Though nice win yesterday against Kentucky, which is essentially the worst team in the SEC.
Is that right? I mean, you might be right. Mississippi State is a lot better.
Mississippi State's good. No, they're legit good.
They should have beaten Tennessee. Yeah. No, they're a lot better.
I'm shocked that they turned that thing around so quickly, because they were legit horrible last year. They were a terrible SEC team and flipped the roster again. And I was definitely skeptical that you could do that and in the SEC and make a big step forward. Now, they have a really rough schedule, the Bulldogs. So I don't know. They could still end up winning only barely. They still might have a hard time getting to 6 wins just because the schedule is so difficult. I mean, is Arkansas the worst team in the SEC?
I was just gonna say,
we talked best, but now
that was bad against Notre Dame. I know who's not going to be on the worst list. Vanderbilt, 5-0 Vanderbilt.
Yeah, big game next week, and College Game Day is going there. It was just announced this morning.
Didn't see that.
College Game Day going. It was going to go to Florida State, Miami. But we might as well get into that, I guess. I don't know. I haven't looked at the rundown.
Good segue. No, that is right next on the
Before we segue, can I ask a question? This is one of our comments sent this in earlier.
Sure. I hate to ignore the comments,
Can someone please explain to Stu that in the year 2025, he's allowed to have 2 TVs in the same room to watch 2 games simultaneously on large screens rather than multi-view? Stu, is this true? You really are operating off of one TV in this day and age?
Yes, I've always been a one TV guy because, you remember how much I struggled in the Fox green room. If I'm looking at multiple screens,
I thought that was socially you struggled in there.
Well, I ate a lot of catered food. I know that. I don't know. Everybody's brain is different. If I'm trying to keep up with multiple screens, I'm going to end up realizing after the fact I didn't really closely watch any of it.
Okay.
I need to be locked in. And multi-view is not that different than having 2 TVs, but I'm not a 2 TV guy.
I'm going to defend Stu because I only have one TV also. The one TV is multi-view. I have a game on my laptop and I have a game on my phone. If I'm home, that's my home setup. There's only one TV in our apartment though, guys. You have to understand, I have very small living space. We have one TV. That's it.
Does it have 13 channels, Ralph?
No, it's got more than that. But you also understand when you're growing up with a kid my age, they don't watch television on a television anymore. My daughter has never asked for a TV in her room because she doesn't care. She flips open her laptop. That's her TV. So for multi-view, laptop, phone. There we go.
There was
And
a
you can
great
do
moment.
multi-view on a phone too.
There was a great moment in the 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 window yesterday. We have an outdoor TV. I like to go out there for a few hours so I don't spend 14 straight hours in my office. And I had I had 4 games on at once, and I had the Iowa-Indiana game on my computer on Peacock. So life was good in that moment. But I appreciate the everybody thinking I'm not doing it right. Florida State, Virginia, Friday night.
Back to Friday. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Did anybody see? Oh, right. I saw that coming.
Don't
That
call a
was my
hamstring taking a victory.
that was my upset pick. It was quite a disparity, guys. I don't mean to rub it in, but
I cheered you on.
That was
on
my
that
upset
one,
pick.
though.
And then your two, how much combined did they lose by?
About 3,000, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, at some point after the 5th consecutive possession that Notre Dame scored a touchdown, I figured Arkansas wasn't coming through for me. At what point did you pull the plug and realize West Virginia wasn't getting it done for you?
God.
When it looked like they brought out those uniforms and it looked like they were playing out of the 1950s.
That was what was the final on that?
I don't know, 80-14. I think they did score 2 touchdowns, but it was rough.
Yeah, neither game was all that competitive.
And enough about us and enough about you, Stu. Let's talk about Tony Elliott, right? Guy came into the year on the hot seat.
Yeah.
I think he's been there 3 years, 3 wins. Last year, 5 wins. Definitely pressure to win. They are 4-1 now. Man, you watch it, and the cool thing I thought here, you have a quarterback. Chandler Morris, who started his career at Oklahoma in 2020. Then he went to TCU, was the backup, didn't really take off when he had the chance. Then he goes to North Texas. Now he reunites with Tony Elliott, the Clemson ties back there with his dad being an offensive coordinator a long time ago.
Right.
5 total touchdowns. He did have 3 picks, but the resilience of them to win that game. I don't feel like any less about, I know Florida is a little bit of a trap game. They obviously have Miami coming up next, but I don't feel worse about Florida State. I think they're still a pretty dangerous team there with a playoff shot. But for you, Ralph, as you're watching this game, you think this says more about where Virginia is or what Florida State really is?
So I applauded Stu's pick. I definitely circled this one as
enough about Stu.
Tough. The point being, I circled this one as a tough spot. Like if somebody had asked me to bet on this game, I would have taken Virginia and about the touchdown. Right? This felt like a bit of a
Friday night road teams, man. Friday night road teams.
Also because I said this on the last show, I've watched a ton of Virginia football. They have fallen in windows where I have had a chance to watch them. That offense is really good. There's a little bit of YOLO to the way Chandler Morris plays, and which came through with the 3 picks, but they can really move the ball. They can run the ball too. That Jamari Taylor is a dude, man. They got 3 running backs who are pretty good. So their offensive line's a little banged up, and the fact that they played around that was impressive. I also think that because we had seen so little of Florida State, except for the Alabama game, where they did give up a bunch of yards, right? It's not like they really shut down Alabama. That because we saw them against Alabama and we really haven't seen them do anything since because they played an FCS team in Penn State, we weren't totally sure what we were going to see, and we probably underplayed some of the things that didn't go well in the Alabama game defensively. So that's where I kind of am with them, Stu. I think is Florida State still a contender to win the ACC? Yes, I think so. But I also think that they don't look as good as Miami, but we'll see next week in Tallahassee.
I wouldn't worry too much about Florida State unless you thought after the Alabama game they were going to win the national championship. They gave Virginia they 2 bad kind of unforced turnovers right at the beginning of the game, handed Virginia 14 points. And from that point forward, it's not like Virginia was stopping Florida State. Neither of them were really stopping each other. But yeah, a lot of credit to Tony Elliott. You just look how many coaches, guys, this year who kind of entered the seat on the hot seat have either already been fired or Billy Napier, Sam Pittman, right, or seem like they're about to walk the plank. Tony Elliott's a guy who has gone in the complete opposite direction. He's given. It was really cool to see. even before that crazy field storming, right? Just to see like our old colleague Dan Uthman, he's still at the Athletic, just not on the college football side, UVA guy. I text him, I'm like, when's the last time you saw like an actual like rabid home atmosphere at a Virginia football game? It was just cool to see. I'll always be as a child of the '95 Northwestern Rose Bowl team. I'll always be a sucker for the turnaround stories. And honestly, yet another example of Virginia of everybody's one good portal class away from turning.
And they had some money. Yeah, I don't want to interrupt
Yeah.
you, Stu. They got some money and they managed to do some things in the portal that maybe they wouldn't have done would have been able to do in past years.
So everybody
All
kept asking who the Indiana of this year could be. Is it Virginia? Could Virginia make the playoff?
That schedule is pretty accommodating too, so it lines up in terms of that. Like, what if you're looking for like another similarity? They miss Miami. They think they miss Clemson. Did they play Louisville? I think they play Louisville. So there's some room there for growth, Bruce, from the Cavs.
There is, and you have a very experienced quarterback. Guys, before we get to our players that impressed us most, one of our viewers, Jake Birdsong, has given us his. Mizzou hasn't played anyone yet. I mean, they did beat a pretty good Kansas team. I think Kansas is decent this year, but yes. But that running game is
they beat South Carolina. The Sellers got hurt. Yeah.
And that running game is spectacular. Yes. I mean, it feels like, credit to Drinkwitz, credit to, what they're able to do every year. I'm sorry, it's Birdsong, not Birdsong. My apologies on that. Yeah, every year, Curtis Looper, the running back coach, they always find a guy. And Ahmad Hardy's been lights out this year and just a really dynamic player. They have their run game is just always been really good. We'll see once the SEC schedule gets a lot tougher.
Yeah, I hate that we kind of missed some of the comments though. I did want to Florida State fan Optimus Climb mentioned that the D line was his biggest concern. They're playing two freshmen on there, the two twins, which is great. Like, you think they might be good players, but the fact that they're playing two freshmen, it did sort of show up. They got gashed pretty good.
And Virginia had a couple offensive linemen out, right? So
yeah,
it was
their best offensive linemen have
alarming.
They haven't been able to put their best offensive line forward here.
Okay, so Ralph, who impressed you, and obviously beyond like the Dante Moores and that you saw up close?
Yeah, so got a good amount of watch in on the Wake Georgia Tech game. Georgia Tech, first of all, Wake got screwed. Can I say screwed? They definitely,
they definitely did.
Yeah, they got a call that didn't go their way. That should have been an offsides. And I don't blame things on officials. There's a lot of plays in a lot of games. That was a big call at a big time that went Georgia Tech's way. Desmond Claiborne, though, is the guy who impressed me. And we talk about guys in the portal, things along those lines. Wake running back, he's a really good player who stuck it out with Jake Dickert in the first year in the transition away from Dave Clawson. I think that they were maybe even a little surprised that he did that, as much as Wake's a great school. He had 119 yards, 2 touchdowns. That guy is a big-time Power 5 running back. There was a major roster transformation at Wake Forest. He was not one of it. He was the guy who stayed there to be the pillar of this team. And they've been better than I think a lot of people thought they might be in year one under Dickert.
Guys, I was originally going to say CJ Carr, and then I thought, you know what, that's a little too obvious. And then I'll just let Devin Dowdy, one of our commenters, I don't know if I said his last name right, just pull. That can be his shout out. CJ Carr is ND's best QB since Brady Quinn. Bruce, you're going to ask Brady Quinn about that, and is a top 5 QB in CFB after 4 starts. You might be right about that. I'll go a little less. Go ahead.
Brady really likes CJ Carr a lot. Has been very high on him for a while. I think Brady would probably even say CJ is probably a better looking guy than Brady, so he's got that up on him. So maybe
he's definitely
better than Quinn. That's a
yeah. I mean, he's definitely better than anybody they've had any time. Like, oh, we're so excited about Sam Hartman. Oh, we're so excited about Riley Leonard. Like, he's definitely better than those guys.
Yeah, this guy's a dude. Yeah.
I'll go a little less obvious. There was a wild game in the Big 12 yesterday in Lawrence, Kansas. Jalen Daniels threw for like 400 something yards. But Brendan Sorsby, who, like, let's be honest, right? Scott Satterfield, Cincinnati have just been completely, like, there's just been really no reason to talk about them the last couple of years. But he's been the bright spot. Brendan Sorsby has been a really good quarterback for them. And he leads them down the field at the end of the game there. Cincinnati gets a big road win at Kansas. I think he is, I keep bringing up the passer rating, so I should, like, maybe have it memorized by now. He is number 11 in the country, right behind CJ Carr. Actually, number 9's Dante Moore, number 10 CJ Carr, number 11 Brandon Sorsby. Yeah, really impressive. Wanted to give him an acknowledgement here.
Yeah, former Indiana quarterback. Obviously, they've been terrific since he's left, but he's made them, look, they gave Nebraska all they could handle in week 1 as well. So maybe this will be the year Scott Satterfield can break through in Cincinnati. He's also one of those guys who's definitely on the hot seat. My guy comes out of the Big 12. Yesterday, there was kind of an under the radar, pretty interesting game that turned out to be a blowout. Iowa State smashed an undefeated Arizona team. It was not close. But Chase Sowell, who is probably what brings something that I think Iowa State most needs. They lost 2 elite receivers to the NFL. He is a big receiver, was a transfer from East Carolina, 6'3", probably 210, really good burst, 4 catches, like 150 yards yesterday. If he builds off that, Iowa State was my preseason pick to win the Big 12. If they get, where he turns into like another Jaden Higgins, similar size guy, look out. I think then, I'm not saying they're going to win the playoff, but I think that this makes them that much more of a threat to win the Big 12.
All right. Want to roll over to shout outs now, guys?
Shout outs. Yes. Go
All right.
Go ahead.
Let me start. And it's a weird one. But San Diego State and Northern Illinois played a 6-3 game yesterday. And I'm not going to say that I saw it because I didn't, and I'm not sure how many people did. San Diego State's now 3-1 under Sean Lewis, and I don't know if they're a real threat in the Mountain West because it hasn't been. They did pound Cal last week. It is interesting though that even Sean Lewis can't necessarily, who's a spread offense guy who made his name at Kent State, actually elevating them a little bit, had a brief stint with Dion at Colorado. Even the offensive guy can't necessarily take San Diego State's DNA away from being just this, like, we're going to mug you defensive team, right? Like a 6-3 game. I think there was like a total, I was looking at the numbers. The teams combined for 100 and God, what is the deal here? They barely broke like 400 yards of offense here. It was just, I can only imagine the slog that it was in DeKalb. But you know what? We embrace all types of football, and good for San Diego State for getting to 3-1. They just, even Sean Lewis, the offensive guru, can't take the San Diego State out of San Diego State.
They definitely have a great you said, can they be a factor in the Mountain West? Well, they've definitely got a great defense. They shut out Cal the week before.
Yeah.
And Cal
I
turned
don't know
around.
if I would say they have a great defense. Like Washington State with their backup quarterback lit them up early in the year. I don't know if I would. Great is getting.
Hey, I thought
getting
you were
abused.
very high on the Washington State backup quarterback.
No, the Washington State backup quarterback is now the starter. He should have been the starter all along. I'm saying it was like they were playing with an inexperienced Jackson Potter was the guy, and they torched the Aztecs.
Well, San Diego
that's a
State
great defense.
Well, hold on now. San Diego State is the number 3 defense in the country right now. Number 1, Texas.
Stu, I'm going
number
to remind
2,
you what my
Toledo.
friend Jim
Number 3,
Trotter
San
said.
Diego State.
Stu, I'm going to remind you what my friend Jim Trotter once counseled me on. Be judicious with the word "you great." Don't throw it around like it's
good. Yes,
like
good
it's,
point. Good point.
Yeah.
All right, fine.
All right,
they have a very good defense. I was just going to say, like Cal, they shut out Cal. Oh, Cal is being Cal again, and then Cal went and won on the road at BC. So good. Good job shouting out the Aztecs.
All right, I'm going to step
got?
in here, and I'm going to go with Virginia Tech. The Hokies had a really nice win. Obviously, it's been a very tumultuous first month of the season. They have a coaching change. Brent Pry just did not get it done. And the biggest thing, this program felt like it's been snake bit for a long time. I think all three of us have have an affinity for our time and going to visit Blacksburg and Lane Stadium. Man, Brent Pry was 1-12 in one score games. That's almost impossible to have that happen. So they had a nice win on the road, no less, against a pretty good NC State team in a one-score game. I think it's the first one-score game they've won since 2022. Shout out to Philip Montgomery, the interim coach, who's now 2-0 with the Hokies, and the Hokies for honestly a lot of chatter about who's going to go in the portal, who's not, all that stuff that makes it even harder to have a coaching change this earlier in the season. Shout out to those players. They battled and they deserve that, and I think that's their fans have a lot to be proud of those guys in the locker room.
All I'm thinking as you're saying that is, God, that is such an NC State loss, right? They beat Virginia, right, in a non-conference game, actually. Turn around and lose to Virginia Tech with an interim coach. It's the Dave Doran MO, basically. Mine is North Texas. The Mean Green guys are 5-0 for the first time since 1959. That's not a misprint. Wow. 1959.
That's when even pre-Joe Green.
Joe Green,
right?
I know.
Right, the guy who the program is named after.
Amazing. When they got the call up to the AAC a couple years ago, I remember thinking, really? Mike Oresco at the time, right? He's like, we're going to go get a bunch of big market teams. But it's like, really, North Texas, they haven't really been good. Even in were they in Conference USA at that time, I think?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But hey, now you look at, it's going to be a very competitive race in the American, not the AAC, the American. Navy's in that mix, Tulane, USF. Who am I forgetting?
Memphis,
of course, Memphis. Can North Texas be in that mix? You speak of Washington State. They beat them like 59-3 a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
Okay. Awkward silence.
Yes.
Awkward silence. One quick thing, because I know we didn't mention it, and it was just like, this was impressive to me. And I just want to tag it here. Ohio State going to another hostile place to do that against a very talented quarterback with a really good running back in Jonah Coleman. But, Damon Williams is a problem. One thing, and I don't know if I want to throw this, it's kind of like throwing a cinder block into the pool. I had a coach tell me that he thinks the best player on the Buckeyes defense is not actually Caleb Downs. It's Arvell Reese. And
it's been amazing.
Watched the game yesterday. He was spying Damon Williams, who's like legit 4.4 fast. I started to see it. I was like, man, this guy's might not be wrong. Arvell Reese is that special. Not a big knock on Caleb Downs, but that's not something I'd heard from anybody else till late last week. And after you watch the game, like, I don't know. I mean, it's just like, this is a guy who has like become like a breakout star. And we talked about all the guys Ohio State has had to replace. I know this at the beginning of after Freaksless came out, James Laurinaitis, the position coach, texted me. He was like, you probably should have Arvell Reese in there. And it looks like he's right. I goofed on that too.
That Ohio State defense is unbelievable. I mean, I didn't think Washington was going to beat them, but I certainly thought they could. Damon Williams would do something more than he did. So yeah, they've already basically shut down two very star core. I think we might be I don't want to open up a whole other conversation thread, but we could be heading toward Ohio State, Oregon 3. In this trilogy. Yeah. Let's close it out. Remember, not every episode of our show is available on YouTube at Audible Show. Guys, do us a favor and subscribe. If you're a YouTube person, please subscribe to at Audible Show. That'll help get the word out, and then you'll know every time we're going to go live. Sundays, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 Pacific. We will be back Tuesday to give Ralph crap on however he decides to fill out his AP ballot, and we'll see you then.